What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be talking about the DC Black Label character, Sandman. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this character in order to hold an intelligent conversation about him and more right now. So let's ponder the question. Who is the Sandman?
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Sandman first appeared in Sandman Volume 2, Number 1, and was created by Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, and Mike Dringenberg back in 1989. Sandman is one of the endless siblings who have existed since time immemorial and are the living embodiment of the various concepts they represent: death, destiny, despair, desire, delirium, destruction, and last and most certainly not least, Dream, or as he is often referred to, the Sandman. Dream goes by more than his fair share of names. Others tend to refer to him as Morpheus, the Oniromancer, and even the Lord of Nightmares. But for the sake of this video, you will probably hear me more often than not refer to him as Dream. As his name would imply, he presides as the master of dreams in a realm called the Dreaming, the place where all dreams exist and is fueled by every being in existence who dreams. He is ageless, genderless, and effectively immortal, only able to be harmed by something he chooses to be harmed by. Even in the event that he is somehow killed or otherwise manages to die, his essence will inhabit another being and they will effectively become him. So long as sentient life dreams, the Sandman will continue to exist, hence why he and his siblings are referred to as the Endless. Despite the Endless having existed for as long as they have, since the concepts they represent were discovered, and with 75 issues of Sandman plus various and sundry spin-off comics spanning 30 plus years, the origin of the Endless, Dream especially, is very vague beyond being born from the personification of time, and at least in the case of Dream, the personification of night. Now, despite me saying earlier that the Endless tend to be genderless beings, Dream does have a tendency to appear as a pale man with blue-black hair and eyes made of pure darkness. But in truth, Dream, like the other Endless, can appear however he wishes: male, female, sexless, black, white, brown, or any other race that he chooses. He can be as tall and as large as 20 skyscrapers or bigger, and as small and diminutive as an ant. He is the third oldest of all of the Endless. His exact age is roughly around 10 billion years old, when the first sentient being ever dreamed. And not just on Earth. Based on Martian Manhunter's recognition of Dream as the ancient dream god of Mars, it's safe to say he presides over the dreams of not just humans, but all sentient life in the universe. Dream is one of the most powerful beings in existence. He is borderline omniscient, meaning he knows any and everything there is to know. I say borderline because there are a few things over the course of his series that he, quotey fingers, doesn't exactly know. Though when it comes to dreams and stories, he is 100% omniscient, even knowing of dreams and stories that have yet to have happened or even been conceived. He is also the personification of dreams and master of the dreaming, and as one would imagine being the personification of dreams, he can control the dreams of all living beings, the good dreams, the nightmares, and what it is his subjects dream about. He can conjure the most peaceful and artistic of dreams and the most terrifyingly real of nightmares. He can also control whether someone has the capacity to dream. He's also been known to put people to sleep at will and in other instances render others incapable of it. He's also able to lock someone in an endless loop of dreams or nightmares if he wishes. It's also been depicted that his mood, whether happy, angry, sad, or indifferent, affects the dreams of the mortal world, leading their dreams to reflect how he is feeling currently. Not only does his mood affect how others dream, and in one rare case where he was imprisoned for over 70 years, his imprisonment pretty much robbed many people of the ability to dream, or even in cases where they could dream, their dreams were never the same way they were as when he was free. Inside the realm of the dreaming, he can create anything he can imagine on a reality warping scale. He can create any living creature or thing that he wants. They would have complete and total sentience, the ability to speak, and do many other things that would otherwise be impossible. Case in point, he has other characters that surround him, like the Corinthian, a nightmare being who literally has teeth for eyes, and another good example is the Raven Matthew, a raven who can talk, which would otherwise be completely and totally impossible. Even outside of the dreaming, he can create illusions so realistic they could be felt or touched, even smelled. Dream has no need for food, water, air, or sleep. He's sustained by the energy created by dreams, and even when cut off from dreams, as he was when he was imprisoned by Roderick Burgess, he was only left weakened by lack of sustenance for 70 years. Despite that, he was still able to wield his omnipotent power. He can also grant his power, or at least a portion of it, to those he wishes. Dreams aren't the only source of his power though. He's been depicted as wielding powerful magical spells and the ability to move people and things with his willpower alone. He's also capable of healing the injuries of others with as little as a touch of a finger. He's considered to be superhuman in every aspect: strength, speed, agility, stamina, durability, and endurance. The exact extent of this is untested, but he has often been depicted as capable of feats no normal human could accomplish under any circumstances. He's also able to travel the universe relatively freely, regardless of the realm or the dimension. He can create a portal to any place where dreams exist. It's even believed by some that even saying his name can give him enough of a foothold in a place to travel there instantaneously, even if it's a realm where dreams do not exist. Dream is not without his weaknesses though. During and after his imprisonment, the realm of the dreaming withered, the same as he did, making the ability for others to dream difficult. And without dreams from sentient life, he too was weakened. And without his possessions, namely the Sand of Sleep, which renders those affected by it to fall asleep, the Helmet of Dreams that protects him, and the Dreamstone that helps him focus his unimaginable power, the Sandman was considerably weaker and incapable of achieving his fullest potential. That said, he was still more powerful than many of the most powerful beings in the DC Comics universe, something that was even depicted when he transported himself to the realm of hell and spoke rather recklessly to the fallen angel Lucifer, even making some veiled threats when he wasn't even at 100% power, and the only artifact that he had obtained was his Sand of Sleep. Another weakness of Dreams is that he must follow the rules of the Endless. That can be at times unnecessarily complex and ridiculously obtuse. He cannot kill another Endless. If he does, he loses protection against the other Endless. This has been used against him in multiple ways, with some of the Endless having sired children, even himself being put in opposition against these children and potentially harming them or killing them is a very clear way to set him up for a downfall. He's also not allowed to love a mortal. This is less of a weakness and more of a detriment to the mortal in question. If he were to fall in love with a mortal, they would be doomed to meet a very tragic and untimely end. While this isn't a physical weakness for Dream, it is more of an emotional one. And as one might imagine for a being that's lived for billions of years, Dream is often aloof and by many other accounts, even his own siblings, to be incredibly insensitive. He doesn't sugarcoat anything he has to say, no matter how distressing or heartbreaking it may be to those around him. Case in point, when he returned the spirit of Hawkman's son, Hector Hall, to the land of the dead, Dream didn't mince words when telling Hector's wife Hippolyta that one day he would come to take her child away to the land of the dreaming and that there was nothing that she could do to stop him. While he does take a great interest in the world of mortals, he cares particularly little for their ambitions, good or evil, and has no illusions about how much power he commands when threatened by what are to him lesser beings. He views all things with a cold calculus that makes him come off as alien, but sometimes his sheer bemusement at the land of dreams as well as the dreams of others can come off as hopelessly romantic. By today's standards, he'd be considered quite emo. That said, over the course of Sandman's 75-issue run, the character does grow a great deal and even breaks some of that emotional stuntedness that he might be mistaken for having, and even sheds that emotional armor away as the series progresses and opens himself up to more personal connections. And while he doesn't foster many of those personal relationships at first, he does seem to value his older sibling death highest among the other endless, as well as his connections to characters like Rose and Jed Walker. Regardless, Dream tends to be the do-it-yourself type, often refusing the help of others, as was evidenced by his imprisonment. He could have reached out to Death at any point, and even by her own admission, she would have helped him, but he chose not to, instead remaining captured by mortal men for the better part of a century. Now, this was due to the fact that he understood that Roderick Burgess was trying to summon Death in the first place, and while it could be said that he was worried of what would happen to her, I feel like he was a little bit more worried about what would have happened to humanity as a whole for even attempting to capture her. But in the end, the way he reveals how he feels about this comes off as incredibly sad-sackish. He doesn't like relying on others, even if they are his family. That said, the character of the Sandman is incredibly nuanced, sublimely complex, and the entire character's run is a joy to read. Now, as far as recommended reading goes, I'm gonna recommend these more by volume as opposed to issue number, but what I'm gonna recommend is that you check out, well, of course, the opening story arc of the Sandman, referred to as Sandman Volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes. This is basically the opening story arc, and I want to say the first 7 or 8 issues of the entire series. And if you are someone who is interested in the upcoming Netflix live-action series of Sandman that should be out by the time of this video's release, this first volume is the majority of what this first season is going to be adapting. I'm also going to recommend you check out Sandman Volume 2, The Doll's House, which collects issues 9 through 16. These issues are going to open you up to the wider universe of the Sandman, and will also introduce you to some other characters you're going to be seeing in the upcoming show, specifically Rose Walker, but will also give you more insight into Dream's history throughout the rest of the world. I'm going to recommend you check out Sandman Volume 4, Season of Mist, which collects issues of Sandman number 21 through 28. This is a story that basically tells you a lot more about Sandman and his personal relationships. It's also considered to be one of the best Sandman stories ever told. Not only is this an interesting story just because it teaches you a lot more about Dream's past and his personal relationships, but we also get to see a depiction of what Dream does when Lucifer is no longer in hell and he has to pick someone to run it. I'm also going to recommend that you check out Sandman Volume 9, The Kindly Ones, which is basically Sandman number 57 through 69. This is basically the culmination of a lot of the short stories that kind of became a huge part of Sandman's run over the course of 75 issues. In a lot of the middle volumes, a lot of those stories were mostly short tales, and while I do recommend you read all of them, if you do, this is the book you definitely want to make sure you don't miss, because this basically makes all of it make sense. That said, I admittedly am a recent convert to the Church of Sandman. I've never been the hugest fan of the character back in the early days. It wasn't until within the last few years that I got tuned on to Sandman and really became a fan of the character. Learning more about Dream and his siblings and seeing his relationships with them and how he interacts with the world as a whole just was something I found incredibly interesting, because admittedly when I was a kid I didn't find the idea of the Sandman that particularly entertaining. I liked more street level comics and superheroes and stories, but now as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, I like some of this existential stuff and some of the crazy, like, you know, omnipotent characters have started to grow on me a little bit, and Sandman is definitely one of them. If you're into edgelord superheroes and comic book characters, check out this video on the top left where you can learn all about Image Comics' Spawn, and if you want to know more about the magic side of the DC Comics universe, check out my video on the bottom to learn all about the character of Dr. Fate. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about the character Dream, aka the Sandman. Have you always known about him, or are you today years old finding out about him? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.